Bad news today for Nebraska football as the NCAA hammers the program with NCAA violations. It's true. Nebraska gets caught for the accountable coaches rule because Jonathan Rutledge was a special teams analyst. And as an analyst, you're not supposed to be directly involved with coaching the players. So if you're directly involved in coaching the players, that's more coaches than you're supposed to have because the NCAA does place a limit on the number of coaches that a program can hire. They don't really place a limit on the number of analysts, which is why you have like Alabama with the regular set of coaches and then 743 analysts. And I think they have this limit so that you can somehow they pretend like they're leveling the playing field. Anyway, Nebraska gets caught for countable coaches, and that's because Jonathan Rutledge was coaching players as a special teams analyst. And yeah, your jokes are appropriate. If you're fans of other programs, your jokes are appropriate where you say things like, well, if they were going to cheat, maybe they shouldn't go 3-9. Or, gosh, I'm glad they cheated on special teams and they still ended up that bad. Imagine what they were, how bad they would have been if they wouldn't have cheated at all. Those are all valid statements. And the penalties are harsh from the NCAA. A 1-year extension to the current probationary period through April 2023, which, could be bad if you're going to do more NCAA violations, and then something might actually happen. A $10,000 fine. You think Scott Frost has to pay that? Because he could go broke. A 1-year show cause order for the football coach, plus a 5-day suspension from all coaching duties during the championship segment of the 2022 football season. What's that mean? A show cause order means that it stays with the coach, not the school. In other words, if Scott Frost were to leave Nebraska and go coach for like Bowling Green, he'd still have this show cause. He'd still have a violation against him, which isn't that big a deal unless you're going to do more violations. And then they start adding up, and then the NCAA says you can't coach for anybody anymore at all, or for 10 years or whatever it is. But it stays with the coach. 5-day suspension from all coaching duties during the championship segment of the 2022 football season. The championship segment is basically, the season. It's not just the week before the Big Ten title game that we're going to make this year. And, it's kind of a weird, basically it means during season. 5-day suspension, like he gets a vacation. Maybe he's going to go miss football practice for rifle season, deer season in Nebraska. Reduction in the number of football accountable coaches by 1 for 2 days of practice during the spring 2022 season. They put that in there just so they could have a line like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just so they had more, it looks like something, because then it doesn't even mean anything. All non-coaching staff members will be removed from practice and competition for 5 consecutive days during the championship. It means none of this really is that big a deal, but it is an NCAA violation. And it's important to note that because now Scott Frost is the only coach in Nebraska football history with an NCAA violation on his record, amongst a lot of the other things that have gone wrong with the Scott Frost era at Nebraska. And I'll tell you why it should matter to you, why this should matter. Listen, I know that we can poo-poo the NCAA and we can look at it and go, oh, well, who cares what they think? They don't have any power anymore. And that's kind of true, but they still do have rules and they still do some, they still can do some things. The transfer portal is insane. Nil deals are all over the place and insane. And there's tampering going on apparently. And it's crazy. And the NCAA had years to prepare for this, but no, they ignored the problem and litigated it out instead of actually building a structure around it. And here we are in the Wild West. But you should care that Nebraska has NCAA violations right now. Why should you care? Because it goes back to one thing that bothers me about Scott Frost. And that is he's one of those guys that talks about doing all the little things right. Because a lot of coaches will do that. Your boss probably does that too. Let's do all the little things right so we can be successful. but then he doesn't do them himself. Like he doesn't what? Pay attention to the special teams analyst is actually coaching? It's not a matter of him not caring. Well, yeah, it actually is, because it is an NCAA violation, and it matters to some people. And it's just one more sign that, honestly, I don't think he really pays that close attention to all the details that he needs to be paying attention to, which is why it goes back to, I don't think he's going to be a success at Nebraska. It's this kind of shit that shows up. And you look at it and you go, what were you even thinking? Our special teams were awful. And it didn't make any difference. And I think it wasn't out of, let's do better at this, or let's try harder, or let's cheat and make it better. I think it really happened just because, just because it's like one of those guys who gets promoted to a management position, and he has no idea how to be a manager. And he just thinks, well, I'm a manager. I tell everybody else what to do, and I really don't do anything myself. And then he goes like, ultimately, like your boss gets promoted to a manager. He's not a good manager. And he says, oh, you guys go do this, and you guys go do this, and you guys go do this. And he assumes that you're doing this because he told you to, and he's such a good leader, you would follow him. When really, what he fails to realize is that as the manager, he is in charge and responsible for the success of all this shit. And that's really where I think Scott Frost is failing at Nebraska. Really, more than anything. I think Eric Chinander has a really good handle on the defense. On the offensive side of the ball and the program overall, I think Scott Frost really, the whole NCAA violation thing is just one more sign that he isn't there all the time. He isn't putting in the hours. He isn't putting in the detail. And he isn't paying attention to everything that's going on in the program. And ultimately, I think that's one of the reasons why he will fail. And that's why I think it's important that you look at this and go, do I care about this? Not because it's maybe an NCAA violation as much, but because it's a sign of things to come. I'm John Johnson, CornNation. I hope you subscribe to my channel for more ranty bits. And I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves. Go Big Red.